Hi, I'm Abby. I'm 29 years old. I'm a trans woman, and this is my first movie. I don't know what this movie's going to be about. Identity, like transgender identity, especially the way that like identity can like tie into art, um, the desire to create, and maybe the doubts that you might have about that. Or I've also talked about life in transition versus like in physical transition kind of happening at the same time. Being transgender has defined the last few years of my life. I I feel like my life is in a state of transition, which, you know, metaphorically and literally, I guess. Um, but I've I've always felt like that kind of. It's like I'm so terrified of things changing. Uh, I almost never feel comfortable because things could change. I never feel settled. I never feel still. And I think that's the root of a lot of my issues as far as creative endeavors are just, things I want to do go in general. I I feel like, oh, in a year like I'm I'll feel like I'm in the right place to do things, and every, year, every few months, every whatever, that's what I tell myself. And, nothing ever happens. It stagnates. My life for almost my entire adult life has been stagnated. My entire life, I've wanted to create to some extent. I've wanted to be an actor. I've wanted to be a comedian. I've wanted to be a filmmaker to shoot documentaries. Um, I've wanted to be a musician. I've wanted to play drums. I've wanted to play guitar. And I've tried some of those things and they weren't for me. And I've tried some of those things and they are for me. But there is an overwhelming fear of failure. A lot of times I feel like I haven't done a whole lot with my life or like I'm a failure or whatever, but it's like under the lens of like things that I've done that are either like profitable or like gained attention or whatever. I feel like so much of like what we're programmed to feel like is worthwhile is things that make money.
Yeah, I get that.
So it can be hard to measure any form of like success or self-worth off something that doesn't go. I think we all have a drive to create, to express ourselves.
I used to, at least when I was in high school and middle school, I used to draw a whole bunch. But like my buddy who would also draw, and we'd like just come up with ideas together. So he stopped coming to school in 11th grade, and that's why I kind of just like fell out of it. I wrote as like a kid stories.
I just kind of fell out of it because like the artistic drive kind of left me.
Yeah.
But like my drive to create didn't leave. It just kind of changed form because like now I prefer writing and doing like customs. Like that's where like my art drive has gone to like more the custom route.
I feel like what you were saying also about like kind of like it being shunned if you're not doing anything that makes
that also I think kind of ties in like also to the way like I was raised, I think, and I think like a lot of people in the U.S. like especially like within Christianity and stuff, or at least within like the certain like branch of Protestant Christianity I grew up in, like there's a lot of emphasis on like finding like what's God's special calling for your life, and of course
Yeah.
there's only like one. You got to figure out what like your talent is, and I feel like that puts undue stress on you to find something that you're like great at and doesn't, I don't know, encourage like experimenting and stuff with different things. Being okay with like experimenting with stuff that might not turn out to be your thing, you know.
Even just turning on this camera and talking to it is so much harder than I think a lot of people would realize. Do you think your upbringing has affected the way that you express yourself? Like, not necessarily even just through art, but like generally?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, in a way, that's kind of like everyone's upbringing. This is how they express themselves because that's how you learn social cues and stuff.
I've dealt with depression and anxiety since I was about a preteen. Was when it became, very obvious that I was struggling and having issues, and I attribute that to a hereditary cause. My mother had a lot of issues with depression and anxiety as well. Growing up with her was
But
difficult.
with my case specific,
I
mean, being homeschooled,
never felt
I
like
feel
I
like
had
even to this
a close
day,
relationship with her.
still am a little off with social cues and things. And I wasn't like isolated or anything. Like we would go to a homeschool group on Wednesdays and stuff. But I don't know. I feel still like there's some not a lot of times, less now. But especially when I was just like getting into like freshman year of college and stuff, a lot of times where I just didn't get what the social script was for certain situations, or like how to express myself appropriately.
I don't really fit in at school. I think a lot of people can probably relate to that. And kids are terrible. Kids can be so awful. It was tough going to school every day and being told that you're retarded or that you're stupid by kids. That is something that you will internalize. And I feel like that all the time. I feel like I'm too stupid to create what I want to create. I'm too stupid to express myself to others. I'm too stupid to, understand, whatever. And it's like this self-fulfilling prophecy where, I dropped out of school when I was 14. And I never, got a high school diploma equivalent or like a GED or whatever. So it's almost like I let myself think that I was stupid.
I think I was raised to be pretty introverted in a way, and raised to be pretty quiet. I don't know, because I can also think of times as a kid where like my parents tried to push me more like extroverted, and I did not go for that. So maybe it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy. When I go back home now, I definitely feel like I'm like the exotic one out of the family. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. I feel very out of place with the rest of my family, mostly because, I'm like the only queer person in my immediate family.
Yeah.
So, and my interests are different. I have an older brother, and he got married like really young, and he's like in tech and all this stuff. So I have like a completely different life than he has. So I've been out as transgender for probably like 6 years now. And as you can see, if you're if you know anything about being transgender, I don't look like I've been on hormone replacement therapy for 6 years. And the truth of it is that I just started hormone therapy about 4 months ago because there's this fear that is constant within me, and it made me scared. I was scared that things wouldn't turn out the way I wanted them, that I wouldn't ever look the way I want, that I would never feel the way I wanted to feel, that I would never be the person that I want to be. And that's terrifying. And so I put it off. And for, those years, I did socially transition. I changed my name to Abby. People call me, by she, her pronouns. People, I dress feminine most of the time. I've done everything besides things that are medical.
I feel like sometimes like the current discourse on gender has too much emphasis on like being, like, are you transgender? And I feel like that's useful like tactically right now for how we're being treated politically, because we are treated by people who oppress transgender people as an identity. So I think that's good in reaction to that. But I'm also kind of ideally, I'm not like a gender abolitionist, because that gets into like turfy areas. But also ideally, I feel like I don't know. I think of gender more as like an act of like self-creation, kind of, and like doing what feels natural to you. But then, like, I say all that, and that's like academic theory, kind of. That's kind of what I believe academically. But then also just like on a day-to-day, like, affective level. I don't know. I do like to think of myself as like, and maybe it's just like narcissism, as being like inherently like trans in some way, or inherently different, inherently like trans feminine.
Having now started doing things that are medical, my perspective of myself has changed. It's like I was so satisfied with the way that I looked, actually, and I felt like I looked cute. And it's, because I essentially was just, cross-dressing, at least outwardly. Inwardly, I am transgender. I'm not a cross-dresser. But outwardly, that's kind of what I was putting out to the world, and I felt comfortable and I felt like I was attractive because I was thinking of myself visually as, I guess, a cross-dresser. So I thought, wow, I look really good for somebody who is, assigned male at birth, who isn't on hormones, who's just doing makeup. And now that I'm in a place where I am on hormones, I actually feel worse about myself for now. And I know that's not going to be the case forever. It's just the case for right now. I know the reason is because I know how much further, how far away I am. I know how far away I am from what I want to look like, where I want to be. It's, 6 months, a year, year and a half, 2 years, who knows, ahead until I'm going to be satisfied with the way I look again.
It's like comes into weird play when it's like, because like I have two buttons for my pronouns here. She, her. They both say she, her on my tote bag that I carry around.
Oh, yeah.
But like, I don't know. Like some days I walk around with them like turned in, and I know it's bad. Like you even put the meme on Discord, like you don't have to earn your pronouns. But I don't know. Some days I just feel like it's easier not to show that off, just because like I don't know, especially like dealing with depression and stuff recently. Like sometimes it's hard to like get up, and I don't feel like shaving or like putting on makeup or anything. And I'm at the point in my transition where if I'm not like putting in effort every day, like, and I just wake up and like walk to bed as I am, I'm still gonna be read as like a man. like maybe probably a slightly effeminate man, or like maybe like a little androgynous, but like my voice is deep. I have some stubble, and so I don't know. I still use like on days where I'm like that. It's not like ideal. Like I would be able to just roll out of bed and not have to like just be automatically read as a woman.
Yeah.
Obviously, so it's not like, but like I don't know. I still like will use the male bathrooms on those days where I'm not like putting in effort. And I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. It just feels like safe, not safer, but like
No.
yeah.
I totally get where you're coming from because, I've been on hormones for like 4 or 5 months now. Hasn't been doing much, which is unfortunate. But one of the things that, because I've actually been out of trance for like 6 or 7 years, and I've just been socially transitioned because I had a lot of anxiety about medically transitioning. And one thing that I'm able to do now is be like, oh, I don't feel like being read as trans today. So I'm just gonna like play like I'm cis today. And then I don't have to worry about I just use the men's bathroom and there's no issue, and whatever. And then like there's gonna be a point where once I'm, like a year or 2 years or whatever, no hormones, I'm never gonna be able to do that again. So it's like some days there are days where it's like I want to take the easier option of like presenting male that day. So it's kind of scary not having that to like fall back on. I first started having the feeling that I might be transgender when I was about 20 years old. That is considerably later in life than some people, and it doesn't really fit with the simplistic narrative of transgender people that I was given as a kid. It's explained to you like, oh, this is so and so, and they feel like they're stuck in the wrong body, and they felt like that, since they were 5 or 6 or whatever, and that just didn't resonate with me, and it made me feel like a fake or a fraud for quite some time, until I started talking to people in the community and realizing that these stories of people who realize they're trans later in life are not that uncommon.
And I mean, I have imposter syndrome about everything, not just about gender. So it's kind of just inevitable. And like sometimes I wonder where like did I jump into medical transition like too quickly? Just because like I didn't freeze like sperm or anything, and it's like, wait, do I actually want to have like biological kids? Like, did I think about this enough? Because I didn't really like start seriously thinking that I might be trans until it's coming up on like a year. It was March, a week before my birthday last year, that I was like, I think I might actually be trans. And yeah, and so that was a pretty big. I didn't start. I started. So I was within that week. I started experimenting online with like self-presentation. So I joined the Discord that we're both on.
Yeah.
And on like Reddit and some other social media sites, I would like change to a feminine name or change to she/her pronouns. And I got like makeup and eyeliner, and I put them on like in my room pretty badly. I had one roommate last year who just wouldn't leave. He was like a physical fixture in the room, so that made it a little hard to like try anything. But like I would like sometimes put on very light like eyeliner and makeup, and I bought a padded bra, but I wouldn't wear that in public. Continuing with the timeline, I came here. I got a job, came back to San Francisco for the second year of my MA, hopefully the last year if I can finish the thesis. And with like my group of coworkers at the Res Life, I was like, yeah, let's not do this publicly yet, but within other like work people, if you could call me like Paula and she, her. I would also during last semester started to like pick up more like femme clothes and like wear them out like in public more often. And then at the beginning of this semester, I started hormones December. So like I started the process of getting hormones, and I got them the December 19th, so like the week after the semester ended. And then as of the end of January, coming back, I've changed my name in like the school email. I've been using the name of the professors now, and so I'm pretty much full-time going by Paula, and I introduce myself as Paula now, like coffee shops and stuff and everything. So full-time since January, so about a month and a half now.
And in the, you know, in the year since, looking back, I see things that, you know, are kind of obvious that I didn't feel like I was living in the right skin. And you know, sometimes it makes me feel bad. Sometimes I feel like I cheated myself. Sometimes I feel like I would have been different today if I had known sooner and, you know, done something about it.
I really just like the whole like I was born in the wrong body.
No, yeah, that's shitty.
First of all, I hear that almost exclusively from right-wing people, not from the trans people themselves. Not that it's bad if that's how a trans person describes themselves. But I don't think I was born like the wrong body. I think I was born in a transgender body. Like that's a different thing. And I mean, like sometimes I wonder if I grew up in a more accepting, like ambiance, would I have like known earlier, or like if I knew that puberty blockers were a thing, would I have taken them?
Right.
Because like on the one hand, when I was a kid, I had this weird like almost like sexual fetishy like thing about puberty. Like I don't know if that sounds weird, but like I was almost kind of like obsessed with it a little bit, but also like not wanting it to come. Like,
yeah.
It was like a weird double-edged thing, and then I remember like having a dream when I was 11 or 12. I think I was 11, about like doctors like turning me into a girl, and like being excited about that. I remember when I was 11, also like looking in the mirror and like my hair back, because I thought it made me look more like a girl. And I remember going to my mom and being like, "Hey, do I look like a girl when I do this?" And she was like, "Oh, like it's scary how much you look like a girl when you do that." And I remember thinking like, I don't know, like being kind of proud of that. It's very weird being trans. It's a really weird experience. And I don't know, there's just a lot of self-doubt that's involved, and like not feeling people underestimate like how much internalized transphobia. I mean, especially with me, it's kind of hard because like I grew up like super like I don't know, in a pretty. I mean, not specifically transphobic because that wasn't something that was talked about, but like you know against gender non-conformance, and so like it's still kind of always going to be a part of like my brain, I guess. Yeah, and it's weird because it's like I'm still not sure how much like my actions are like masculine or coded male to people, like just the way that like I position my body or the way
Right.
that, like I speak. Like I remember I saw one of those like assigned male comics that was like, "Oh, I've been forced to like perform the wrong gender," and it's like, well, because I feel like the emphasis on perform there is like you're performing if you're a trans person that is like boy moding or girl moding, I guess. And once you're like transitioned, then you're not performing anymore. But I feel like you're just performing differently in a way that you'd prefer to perform.
I wish I had all the answers. I wish I could be more insightful. I wish I could express myself more fully. But I'm trying my best, and I think that's what's important. I think everybody just needs to try to be their best, try to be kind. I feel like that's what's important. Just being brave, trying hard, you know, putting yourself out there, doing what you want to do. I think that's the most challenging and most rewarding thing a person can do.